What is going on, guys? Welcome to the first part of my new series, Chop to the Top. So what I'm going to be doing in this series is starting with a very cheap, easy to get my hands on car, doing a little bit of work to it, improving it slightly, then selling it on in hopes of buying something a little bit better, doing the same again till I eventually work my way up to something very special. I can't say what at the moment, but it's going to be something much better than what I'm starting with. So my intention here is to keep you in the loop with all the costs involved, to give you a realistic picture of how much it costs to do something like this, what skills were involved, and the steps I had to take in between. So then, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, here it is, car number one. What have we got? It is a 2003 Toyota RAV4 GX 2 litre VVTi petrol. It's done a little more than 143,000 miles, has 7 months remaining on the MOT, 147 brake horsepower originally, and unbelievably, aircon actually works. So I said I was going to start with a cheap car, and I wasn't joking. For this, I paid just £150. It's got to be worth that all day long, hasn't it? So let's have a quick look at the issues that need to be sorted. First up, we've got these faded and yellowing headlights. They're really ruining the look of the car, but it's easy to sort. Next, we have an unsightly rusty tow bar. Worse than that, the electrical socket is knackered, the wiring is ruined. But again, not the end of the world. What is really letting the car down is this scratched and hazy paint. It should really pop to be a metallic green, but it's absolutely flat. Aside from these areas, it's really not that bad, to be fair. It's just absolutely filthy. I mean, look at the engine bay, it's never been cleaned. It really needs a good going over. None of this is that unusual. I mean, this dirt is all over the car. I mean, there's moss and mould growing behind the spare wheel, for instance. Not the end of the world, easy to sort, but it does need addressing. As you might expect, the same level of cleanliness extends to the door shuts. They're pretty gross as well. Leaves, dirt, cobwebs, everything's in there. Easy fix, but just something that really needs to be looked at. The real damage comes when you look inside this thing. I said the engine bay has never been cleaned. Well, clearly the interior hasn't either. It is disgusting. There is mould, there's dirt, it stinks. This is where a lot of elbow grease is going to be required, but it will make a huge difference. This could be the best car in the world, but with an interior that smells like this, anyone who comes to view it will be put off straight away, and I won't stand a chance. Fortunately for me, everything I've mentioned so far is a relatively easy fix, and in the case of the interior, it is just elbow grease. Absolutely fine, I can deal with all of that very easily. Basically, so far this is looking like a great purchase for £150, but there is one thing to mention still. Now, this old RAV4 starts, stops, runs, drives, everything. It's all perfect. Mechanically, it seems fine, but the one head scratcher we have got is an undiagnosed check engine light. It's something that we're going to have to look into. Who knows what it could be at this stage. Maybe a bit of a gamble, but definitely needs to be sorted out. So, plan of attack. First things first, we're going to restore those yellow, hazy, faded headlights. That will lift the look of the whole car. Next up, that rusty tow bar will get a freshen up. On top of that, it'll get a new electrical socket and wiring. Then it's on to an interior deep clean. That'll be a full shampoo and wet vac, hopefully to remove that smell, but certainly those stains and mould. Also, the paint is going to get some attention. That hazy faded metallic paint job is going to be refinished and corrected. That engine bay is going to get a long overdue spring cleaning as well. Finally, that check engine light will be diagnosed, any faults that are found will be fixed, and the light will be put out. When all of these jobs have been completed, it'll be time to shoot some decent photographs for an advert, get it listed online, and get it sold. So let's get to it. Okay, first things first, it makes sense to give this thing a quick clean before it comes into the workshop. Shift any loose dirt and grime off the bodywork, off the wheels and wheel arches. Clearly I'm not being too fussy here, this is your bog standard contact wash. I'm just going around getting any dirt out of the hidden gaps like the fuel filler cap, all that sort of stuff, just to give me a clean canvas to start with. Once this is done, it can be pulled into the workshop and I can make a start on the list of jobs mentioned earlier. First on the list is to tackle those yellow faded headlights. This is basically a stage sanding procedure with a machine polish at the end. If you want to find out more about how this is done, I'll include a link in the video to one of my 5-minute fix series which gives a bit more information. With that job done, it's onto the tow bar. Here you can see what I'm dealing with. Aside from the rust, the wiring is pretty much toast. The best way to deal with this is to cut the old unit off, pull the wiring out, get rid of the tow hitch, give the whole thing a freshen up. So When things are rusted in, the grinder comes out, so does the big bar, and on we go. Now the wiring supply doesn't look too bad, so I just freshen up the ends, make sure they're healthy before I restore the rest of the bar. Basically this is super simple, it just involves a bit of a wire brush, a bit of treatment and some hard wearing anti-rust paint afterwards. This is a perfect example of a quick, easy fix which lifts the look of a car, keeps overheads low, but will help with resale value. Fortunately, the tow hitch itself is actually in pretty good condition, so again it just gets a wire wheel and a repaint. After that, it's time to wire in the new tow socket. Easy job, again it looks 10 times better, but this time it will actually work, unlike the old one. Once this wiring is done, the tow bar is treated to a new mounting plate before refitting the freshly painted hitch. And that's it, the tow bar is done, much better. Right then, it's now time to deal with the disgusting interior of this RAV4. Before I get into the interior itself, I will start with the door shuts, make sure they're nice and clean, so away with that. Once all the door shuts have been cleaned and all the filth removed, it's then time to strip the interior. When something smells this bad, it's best just to take the seats out and start from the beginning. So with the seats removed, we can see why this car does stink. There's everything left into the carpets, from food, there's chocolate there, there's seeds by the look of it. Not quite sure what some of the darker stains are. Either way, none of it smells great, needs to be sorted. So before I vacuum, what I'll do, I'll go around by hand and remove some of the bigger rubbish, chuck it in the bin, then I'll dry vac before shampoo and wet vac, of course. So when dealing with carpets that are this dirty, what I personally like to do is give it a pass with a vacuum cleaner once, then a drill brush attachment which gets some of the deeper ingrained dirt out of the carpet pile, then dry vacuum it again to suck out the remainder of that dirt. That just ensures that I've removed the maximum amount of dirt before I start wet vacuuming. So with the maximum amount of loose dirt and dust removed from the car, I can start to focus on the plastics and the more ingrained dirt that is found there. This can be easy to overlook, but ultimately it will help the overall feel of the car, and certainly in this case make it smell a little bit better. So I don't want to bore you too much with the cleaning aspect of this particular car, however in this case the majority of the work required was cleaning. As I say, didn't smell great, wasn't a nice place to be, so this was a large part of the process with this RAV4. It won't always be this way, but in this case this was the larger part of the work required. Now as you know, the carpets have been properly vacuumed, now it's time to shampoo them. Great stage because this is what helps the car to smell better. If you think about it, the carpet is essentially a big sponge with lots of nice smelling detergent and soap in there. It really lifts that interior and makes it smell great. Really helpful to sell a car when it smells nice as opposed to one that smells like an old sock. So this is a great car to start with in this Chop to the Top series. Reason being, most of the work required is cleaning and elbow grease. This is a great way to add value to a car without spending a fortune on it. It's useful because when you're looking to buy a car low and sell it a little bit higher with a view to going on again and maybe again and again, this is the best way to capitalise. If you start with something that needs hundreds and hundreds of pounds spending on it mechanically, you're probably not going to see that money back very quickly. So this is a great example of a car that most people could take on, do the work themselves and hopefully sell for a small profit. So now that the floor mats have been dealt with and the majority of the dirt removed from those, we're nearing the end of the interior clean. Obviously the seats are yet to be done. This is kind of an important part because they see a lot of traffic if you think about it. Not as much as a carpet, but they do pick up a lot of stains. The process here is pretty much the same as the carpets though. It's essentially a dry vac, take most of the dirt out that I can, shampoo, work the shampoo in, and a wet vac. As long as they're let to dry properly, they'll smell nice and they'll look better. You won't be able to tell from this clip, but the colour of the water that was getting sucked out of these seats was unbelievable. Still, satisfying knowing that you're getting something out. So with all the interior cleaning now done, it's time to refit the seats and move on to the next stage. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the engine bay cleanup. It's always important to have a clean engine bay in any car you're selling, because anyone who's looking to buy that car, when they look under the bonnet, you want them to know that that car has had some attention under there, not just been left alone. Right, now it's time to try and sort out this hazy, dull paint. It's true what they say, you can polish a profit into a car. Now, I'm by no means a professional vehicle detailer, don't get me wrong, this is just something that I do to freshen up the look of any car I've got in stock. First off, I start by clay barring the whole car. This removes any ingrained contaminants in the paint ahead of machine polishing. Once that is done, it's time to hit the car with a machine polisher. I'm using a medium grade compound here and medium softness pad all throughout. Basically, the car's not too horrendous, but this is enough to remove those light swirls and scratches that you saw at the beginning of the video. Once I finish this machine polish, it's time to take the car back outside and give it a final clean. Something I haven't showed you yet is the wheels. The wheels were pretty disgusting when this car came in, ingrained dirt and baked on brake dust. So I'll show you very quickly how I sorted that using a combination of techniques and products. This is super simple: jet wash, fallout remover, agitate, scrub and repeat. Fortunately, the tyres on this car are all good, so they don't need replacing. I'll just give them a bit of tyre dressing before photographs are taken. So here's something that you may have already noticed. When the car first came in, it had a damaged rear bumper section. I had ordered another one to replace it, but due to various deliveries and mess ups by the seller, it's only just been delivered now. I'm just going to fit this before polishing. So here's another tip if you're looking to sell a car for profit. Rather than getting a bumper, for instance, resprayed, if you can get one from a breaker that's already in the right colour, it's a manufacturer part and you're ahead of the game. Okay, so the biggest unknown with this car was always going to be that undiagnosed check engine light. Long story short, I took it to my local garage, they plugged it into their computer, checked a few things over, and what it actually needed was a set of lambda sensors, a new set of plugs, and a cat converter. So not the cheapest fix in the world, but it did need to be done. Good news is the engine light is now out and the car is absolutely fault free. So now it's time to give the glass and the paintwork a final polish, give the tyres some dressing to give them some gloss, and then take some photographs ready for final advertising. I will show you what those photos look like, and I'll also try and explain where I intend to advertise the car. I did promise to keep you in the loop with regards to costs, so hang tight and I'll put the breakdown of spend on screen in just a second. Okay, so here is a selection of some of the pictures that will be used in the advert for the RAV4. Hopefully you'll agree that it looks like a different animal than when it first came in. Naturally, good pictures are an important part of selling any car, but especially when you're trying to make a profit. Okay, so what did it cost? The car cost £150. Tow bar parts, £12. Replacement bumper, £50. Cleaning products, £20. New catalytic converter, £300. Spark plugs were £12, garage labour £80, advertising costs free, more on that in a bit. So when all told, including the purchase price of the car in the first place and the worst case scenario fix for that engine management light being a new catalytic converter, totally this car stands me in at £624. So even with that cat converter and the garage labour, this car really doesn't stand me in at that much, especially as advertising didn't cost me anything. The reason that is because I didn't have to advertise the car at all. Nearby to my workshop, there's a guy with another Toyota. Unfortunately, it's not going to go through its next MOT because of rust. He needed a 4x4 for the winter, and this seemed like a perfect stopgap. So, even though I had planned to advertise this car for £1,500, being that this was going to be a convenient sale and I wouldn't have to go through waiting a few weeks to find the right buyer, the deal in the end was £1,300, which means I've a little bit more than doubled my money. So although I would have liked to do a final handover video showing the sale of the car, the truth is this one was a very easy sale that sort of fell into my lap, and as such the car was sold and out of the way before I'd even really finished filming this episode. So that means good news for you guys. You don't have to wait until the next episode to see how much I achieved for this car and wait to see what I buy. Instead, you know that I now have £1,300 to go ahead with to buy a car and do any work required with a view to selling it for a profit. So that's it, the first episode of Chop to the Top completed. If you've enjoyed it, please leave me a comment down below and let me know. Stay tuned for the next episode where you'll see what I buy next and how we move forward.